Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 505. My opponent has the white pieces and kicks off with e4, and I play the Sicilian, c5. So we get a couple of normal moves, knight f3, e6. So this signals either the Taimanov or the Khan Sicilians, and he goes for the open lines, which is the main move, d4. But you can actually play knight c3 here and avoid the main lines. Get an interesting game with white. But this is the main line. Knight takes d4, and now we're at the dividing point between the Khan and the Taimanov. The Taimanov Sicilian is an immediate knight move, and the Khan Sicilian, the idea is to delay this knight move and just play other moves for a while. So a6, knight to c3, queen to c7. Once again, you could play knight c6 and transpose back into a Taimanov, but I'm just avoiding that move, so I'm finding other moves. And queen c7 is kind of interesting because it takes a look at this e5 square. Allows me to play knight f6, putting pressure on the e-pawn without allowing the move pawn to e5. Now knight to c6 does the same thing, but it also allows a trade of knights. So I'm avoiding that trade and keeping more pieces on the board. Should lead to an interesting game. Now the main moves here are bishop d3, bishop e2, or even g3. He went with bishop e2. And now knight f6. Staying once again in Khan Sicilian lines, you'll see it really wants to play knight c6 here in the database. And then white castles. And now here's an interesting moment. I went with bishop c5. So this is, I was really thinking either bishop c5 or bishop to b4, and those are the ways that I've been playing it. These are risky moves, I guess is the way to put it, because you're pulling this bishop away from the defense of the king side. So the more sound way to play, you can once again transpose back into a Taimanov with knight to c6, or you can play with moves like d6 and bishop e7. So that's this plan. Put the pawn on d6, put this bishop on e7, just castle king side. You have a really solid setup here, and I think that's a fine way to play. So the way I'm playing is more aggressive, but a little riskier. So I can't necessarily recommend this. You can watch what happens in the game and make up your own mind. But it does lead to some interesting play. One kind of tactical point I should mention about the move bishop e7 is sometimes the bishop on e7 will kind of lurk here, and if black is not cautious, he'll push this pawn forward, opening up this diagonal to the king. And if you sit here with the bishop on e7 and you keep these pawns in this kind of structure so it's not blocking the bishop, you sometimes have the opportunity to trade off this knight here, bring the queen forward, and then play bishop to c5 at that point, skewering the queen against the king, and or pinning, I guess is the word there. But anyway, you win material. So a nice little tactical trick to keep in mind, and that's a reason to maybe not place the bishop immediately on c5, but kind of keep that in reserve in hopes of catching people in that trick. And actually I have won a game that way. But I go bishop c5 immediately here, put some pressure on the center. It's maybe even more effective if this bishop is on d3, because then white has to do something. But he chose to move his knight anyway, knight back, and I dropped back the bishop to a7. So we're out of the book, and you'll see that the chess engine quite likes white in this position, but it's not a winning advantage yet, and there are some interesting counterplay ideas. So he starts off with bishop g5, the top engine choice, and a very logical way to play. This knight has no good moves. There's no pin here, so the knight is free to move, but doesn't have any really great squares to move to. So you don't want to move the knight, and you can't defend the knight with the bishop because the bishop is over here, and you can't defend the knight with the knight because it's blocked by the pawn. So I decided at this point, and this kind of goes with this strategy of early development of the bishop, I decided to force the issue and play h6. What is it? The chess engine had an idea here. Queen to e5. Okay. Didn't consider this move at all. Queen to e5. b5 also is a logical way to play. But queen to e5 is kind of interesting here, defending the knight and asking if the f-pawn can't come forward because it's still pinned by the bishop. So yeah, queen to e5 is a way to avoid pawn damage. I play h6 to kind of encourage this pawn damage, but to open up the g file and give me the bishop pair here. So you see the engine doesn't approve, but well, again, it's not a winning advantage. It's just an advantage to white. And now it's a double-edged position where I have some interesting possibilities. White plays king h1 so he can push the f-pawn forward. I push on with b5, and now he goes f4. And you'll see after a couple of moves that the position kind of equalizes. The chess engine doesn't think that white's advantage is so overwhelming. And he's been playing very natural moves. And you'll see, actually, if you watch the display over here, the evaluation will shift back and forth. Sometimes even black will be favored during this part of the game. Anyway, he plays bishop f3, getting the bishop on a good diagonal. Go knight c6, developing my last piece, finally. I still haven't castled yet. He goes knight e2. Yeah, getting this knight into the game. And then I castled here. I decided to castle on the queen side so I could get both rooks potentially to the g file. And once again, I'm still playing in this risky kind of fashion. So I'm opening myself up. Actually, in this position, it looks like knight e7 is a good move here. The thing is, this pawn structure in the center is pretty solid, so the king is actually safe here. The reason I'm castling is not for king safety. It's more about making the rook available for the attack on my opponent's king. But, well, now white can try and go after my queen side, I guess, the place where I've castled, and try and open up some lines. I naturally want to keep them close, so I play b4, and he pushes on with a5. That's interesting. At that point, it once again decides the position is about equal. So c3. Yeah, c3 is a logical move, just continuing to try and undermine here and open up lines against my king. That would be good for white. Okay, so a5, and I'm still in the game here. I go knight e7, goes rook to c1, taking an ominous view of this queen and king. So I move my king to the side immediately, but it looks like bishop to e3 was a move here. d5, now it's changing its mind. Bishop e3 or d5? What do these moves do? Bishop e3. Okay, bishop e3. Not that bishop, the other bishop, the dark squared bishop. Let's erase some of these lines. Put the dark squared bishop on e3. Poke that rook away from the c file. Very interesting way to play. And or pushing on with d5. Okay, so my move king b1, getting out of the way, is not the best move. And now he plays c4, but maybe c3 would have been a little bit stronger. With c4, I can leave the position closed. Although he does have ideas of pushing this pawn forward and maybe causing some trouble over here with my pieces. I play the knight back to c6. There's looks like I wanted to keep control of this d4 square where his pieces might hop in. He went rook to a1. Oh yeah, I was also attacking the a-pawn. He defended it, and now I push on with f5. So this f5 move is probably a mistake. What do I have here instead of f5? h5, pushing on with the h-pawn. Another way to try and soften up his position. Yeah, I was trying to open things up a little bit, but this is a pawn sec, and it's not entirely sound. I don't really want to take back and just my center would be kind of a mess here. Now I want to push on with d5. Let's see, he takes, I take, and then right here, queen c2 or rook c1, piling up on the c file would be the way for white to exploit my risky play. Instead, he played knight e to d4, also kind of a natural move, but now I'm okay again. I take, he takes, and I can grab this pawn on f4. This pawn on f4, by the way, was hanging off and on. I had to be careful about when to take it, but actually there were opportunities earlier where I could have grabbed that pawn. You just have to watch out for discovered moves with that bishop, but it looks like there's nothing really great he can do at this point. Anyway, he played knight to b3 here. Yeah, it's one of the top choices. But you see that black is in the game here. Let's see, I dropped my queen back to e5. Wanted to stay on this diagonal but get out of the glare of that rook. He went queen to d3. And now I play king to a8. I could have the chess engine saying it's time for me to grab another pawn here, but well, I don't really want to open up pawns over here on this side of the board. I don't want to open up files on this side of the board by grabbing pawns. So king to a8 I play. And this has the idea not only of getting my king to a safer spot, but bringing my bishop onto this diagonal and coordinating this way. Let's see. He plays rook a to b1, decides to defend his b pawn. I play bishop to b8, piling up on threatening h2 there. He plays g3, and now I put the h rook on the g file. And there's an implied threat here, which he ignores and plays knight to c5, just continuing with his attack and going after my pieces. But you see that this is immediately losing. Kind of funny, but I did spot this during the game. I can immediately sack a rook on g3, and this looks pretty strong here. I take, he takes back, I take with the queen, threatening checkmate, and he brings his queen back to e2. Let's see, rook to f2 is the only way to defend, but I'm still winning by taking the rook. Queen to e2, cancel that. He went queen to e2, allows a mate in 7, starting with queen h4 check. I didn't spot that, but the move I played, queen h3 check, is sufficient to win. He's got to block the check. Let's see, well, queen h2, and I take it because I still have this bishop lurking back here on b8. So that's how the game ended, queen h2 mate. But if he plays king g1, he had to run here, then I can bring the other rook in. And so now you can see the point of my castling to the queen side is to have that replacement rook to come in. And now king to f2 is the only move. And then what's the way to finish him off? Bishop to g3, queen to h4 check, checking along this diagonal and driving the king forward. King to e3, and okay, and I can check from e8 and pick up the queen if nothing better. So that looks good. But in this position, he played queen h2 and allowed the checkmate. So a nice finish to an interesting game. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.